Good morning, everybody. Welcome to TLDCast, and welcome to Wednesday. So happy to have Andrew Hughes again here this morning. He is the president and CEO of Designing Digitally, one of our fantastic sponsors. We love having Andrew on once a month. And today we are talking about something that I think everybody is probably going to be interested in, the top 10 ways to increase interactivity and engagement. And good morning, everybody. Hi. Hey, Kara. Hey, Mark, Craig. Thanks for coming in. Mike, Dave. Always happy to see our live group popping in, and looks like the numbers are coming up. Yep. I guess maybe that notification did go out, Andrew.
Yay!
Yeah. So good morning. Hey, just for everybody, we're continuing to have a lot of new folks that pop in, but is there any way you can do a little intro about yourself before we get started?
Yeah, sure. I am the president of Designing Digitally. We started in 2001 after I worked for 4 other e-learning companies. And the reason why is basically we were making glorified PowerPoints everywhere I went. And so we decided to turn it up a couple notches. And so I run that. My wife and I have a property company. And then I'm also a professor at the University of Cincinnati. I teach a full course load, usually 9 to 12 credit hours per semester online. Most of the classes are digital technologies in business, finance, accounting, or organizational leadership, business 101s, fun stuff like that.
Yeah, you are a machine and you're a dad.
Yeah, the most fun part. I have a 4-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, almost going on 2, and never a dull moment. That's for sure.
I wish I could. We could do a dad TLD cast sometimes and just talk about our. Since I have a 5-year-old too, I'd love to chat you up about your dad experiences.
Okay. So. All right, we'll start with that real quick. All right, so here we go. Sorry for everybody on the podcast. We'll just start out with my philosophy on kids. All right, here we go. Kids are like if you won a never-ending supply of Wonka chocolate bars. Chocolate tastes so good. You bite into that chocolate bar, it is so good, and oh my gosh, tastes so great. But after the 27th Wonka bar, because the Wonka bars just keep coming and coming, and that's all you can eat, you get real sick of Wonka bars. You just want a piece of broccoli, just once, just one. You go eat some broccoli, just go away for a little bit. So I state that because kids are amazing. They are fantastic to have. But they're much more fun when you could be like, okay, go home now. So I love my kids, but for anybody, it's not an easy task, as Luis will probably tell you. Right. It's very rewarding, but extremely challenging.
Yeah, long-time uncle here. I was a long-time uncle, but now that I have my son, I wouldn't trade anything for it in the world, though. I mean, it's the best part of my day. Every day.
Absolutely. My other analogy is it's the difference between a sprint and a run. You have friends come over, Luis, when I play with your son, and I say, hey, what's up, buddy? And I use all my high energy as if I'm sprinting, and then I get to walk away and recoup.
Yeah.
While you, on the other hand, you're running that marathon. So he's expecting he's over here expecting that high energy because he's a kid and he can do that, and we're old gray men. So that isn't. Mine's being hidden by the terrible video quality, but I can tell you, I think that's a great way to look at it. I love my boys, and I love having them in my life. They've done nothing but enrich my life, but it is a challenge to be a parent, especially in today's society, I think.
Yeah, and it's amazing how much you learn from them. I'm sure that that's a cool thing. I don't know if you can take that into any of your professional development, but I'm sure that.
I just discovered this terrible thing called Ryan's World. Have you ever heard of Ryan's World? Apparently, Ryan's World. This kid is making $22 million. He's like an 8-year-old, and all he does is play with Walmart toys, and he's got his own YouTube channel. Oh my gosh. I cannot get my kid to stop with the Ryan's toys.
Yeah.
So if anybody has any way to wean your kid off of Ryan's toys, let me know, because I think there needs to be a 12-step program somewhere.
All right. And it looks like Dave is telling us that there's better things to do with his time. So maybe we better move back into the top 10 ways to increase interactivity and engagement.
That's perfectly fine, Dave. We can do that, man.
So we got 10 of them, and you produced an infographic with these 10, and we're going to just go through all 10 of them. And I believe that everyone is going to really enjoy this. The first one is knowledge checks.
Yeah.
So let me go through the brief here. It says include in interactive assessments to ensure users can apply the content to real life situations, testing them in a creative way. Examples of this include mini games, puzzles, and more. So knowledge checks.
See, here's the problem that I've had a long time with knowledge checks. What we've tried to do with knowledge checks is just reiterate and ensure that they have basically spit out whatever we told them in a couple slides beforehand. One of the things that we do not do here is if we're going to do any type of knowledge check, it's actually going to apply that knowledge in some way rather than just looking at, definition information or regurgitating that information in an assessment piece to ensure that they're not just opening up a tab and doing this on another browser or going on Facebook and waiting for the audio narration. So one of the things that you can do are, we call them tap-ins, where you will have specific areas where they have to do those quick interactions to keep them interacting on the screen. But we've also written, JavaScript scripts that determine on if it's the active browser and if their mouse is moving. Otherwise, it will pause completely to stop some of that type of cheating. But knowledge checks shouldn't necessarily be used just to regurgitate information. It should actually be used in a way that's going to enhance the engagement for the learner and actually apply that information in some way.
I'm gonna ask you some questions. I'm more from a creative and media, background. But when it comes to knowledge checks, is there like a particular cadence that you guys go by at all for doing that?
Yeah, it all depends on the sophistication of the project that we're doing and obviously budget and time that we have. But it also goes by how we're actually building out the ecosystem of the curriculum. One of the things we won't do is just a one-off learning module. We don't like to do that very often. And the reason why is that doesn't necessarily solve the business problem. So what we'll do is we'll build out a training plan that may, last 6 months in which they will be dripped mini courses and interactive knowledge checks and pieces post-performance of the original training that continue throughout 6 months afterwards for remedial training experiences. So in our opinion, as far as the cadence will go, you have to bend towards looking at like websites, which can't be that extreme. You got about 2 seconds for somebody to look at your website. You have a little bit more time because the majority of the time they have a little more interest in doing this or they have to do this. So what we try to do is we try to keep them below 15 minutes, the entire course experience. And then we try to do a cadence of about 3 to 5 slides before something. You are doing something almost on every other slide, but there has to be some type of interaction. And that for us reacts just like Newton's law to something later on, not just you're right, you got that answer right, okay, let's move forward. No, It's a consequence you see later on, because that's really how learning happens. If you don't put the concrete in right and you're not level, what's going to end up happening is the whole house is going to fall once you get it completely built. Right. And so we look at ways of doing that rather than just a traditional drag and drop, and some of them may be drag and drops, but the way that they're built is based around an entire storyline and a outcome of that.
Well, I do like the fact that you mentioned here that you create these knowledge checks in testing them in a creative way. Mini games and puzzles. I have to say that a lot of the training that I've taken, like especially compliance training that I'm going through like now at my work is those knowledge checks are like absolutely horrendous.
Blech.
Definitely not gamey or no puzzles or anything at all. So, can you talk
You'd
a
be
little bit about
amazed.
that? Like, what do you guys? What do you? Give me an
Oh
example.
man.
Of what you do.
For compliance training alone, I bet you we did 8 of them last year.
Mhm.
All gamified experiences of compliance training to make it fun. Everything from a first person video based where we actually did like a GoPro experience all the way up to these 3D and mobile games that only last maybe 10 minutes a day. But then we just got done doing kind of an AR mobile app build where you can identify safety hazards with inside of your workplace, and then instead of reporting them, you get points for identifying them. So you're not technically reporting them.
Hmm.
And it's much more than that. I'm butchering the hell out of it, but
Well, I'm saying Leslie has a good point here. Boring knowledge checks can often be due to low budget, in her
yeah,
experience.
yeah. See, here's the thing. And that's a whole other soapbox that we've talked about many other times, Luis. Is that
Yeah.
it's preposterous that your number one piece of capital within inside of an organization, especially a software or technology or service-based industry, is your human capital. And so investing in your human capital is, in my opinion, just as important as investing in your marketing and your advertising. So even though our employees hate it, they have training plans every year, and they're required for X amount of training hours outside of the work time and so on and so forth. In regards to being a freelancer, yeah, that we all know how that is. You're always going to be competing with whoever's going to say who does it lowest or who will do it cheapest.
Right.
And cheap doesn't always mean good. I can tell you, I've seen cheap and fast does not normally necessarily mean good.
Right.
And if you just need it up and thrown up there, you can find plenty of software or freelancers to do that. But if you really want the time and you really want to make a bigger business impact, it's got to be invested in.
Right. So next one, immersive scenarios. So immersive scenarios offer learners the ability to direct their learning paths based off decisions by implementing branching of multiple choice questions throughout the entire course. How does that increase interactivity and engagement?
So about, I would say 7 to 8 years ago, we sat down as a company and we have game developers in-house, and we were really looking at the way that games were developed and decision trees were broken out in gaming rather than the way that it's been broken out in our industry. And we found that we can actually utilize what's called parallel branching to build out those scenarios where you have multiple outcomes or endpoints, but there's only maybe 3 to 4 different outcomes or endpoints based on the decisions that you make. However, those decisions impact much like a string where there's connected like this, and those pieces impact the decisions that are made later on. And we really saw this, and at least we've talked about this before. We really saw this with The Walking Dead. That multiple choice Telltale's game came out with The Walking Dead, and it was a multiple choice game. But the story alone and the decision trees and how that parallel branching worked allowed you to be captivated throughout it when you really weren't doing much when it came to actually hammering buttons or doing anything in regards to actually playing a game.
Wow. Okay. Definitely gonna have to link to that one. Kara had a good idea. She wants me to share the infographic on the screen. So let me is that okay with you?
I'm fine with that. Yeah, go right in.
Let me get this going, and
you can zoom in on each part.
Yeah, hopefully. Let's see how it goes. Screen sharing. You guys see that okay?
Yeah.
Scenarios. Yeah, this is actually a beautiful infographic. So let's move on to the next one. Video over text. So this one's kind of relevant for us.
Yeah, one of the things that we've had a lot lately is not just explainer videos, but actually a mix, a hybrid between kinetic type and either real videos or explainer videos with kinetic type. And we find that those seem to appeal to people that want to get a lower level of Bloom's taxonomy information out, where they just need to remember it. And considering how much media and animation we see on a daily basis, like a good example just above me right now is a television in which it has the weather. And I am now noticing in the background of the weather, there is an animated background to that, a motion graphic background. Those things we're exposed to all day long. So why not try to use some of the motion graphics and the things that catch people's eyes as a tool to market the information that you want to portray to your learners. So we're having a lot of that. We're also having, a biggest difference, like we just did we've all been a part of this. The CEO wants to do like a 3-minute talk. And you know how that is. It's just their talking head and we're just waiting till the end. Well, we did something much different. What we did is we actually had that CEO, which this individual of this large corporation is a really cool CEO. But we actually did this like kinetic type walking, almost like it's like Steve Jobs, but kinetic type is getting in the way and he's pushing it out of the way, but it's him talking. So it's really kind of fascinating to where you're following him, and it's much different than just a hi, I'm so-and-so from so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. I'm so-and-so, so-and-so.
Can you explain what kinetic type is? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, kinetic type is animated typography.
Okay.
So we used to do it in when I was teaching at the Art Institutes and in undergrad for interactive media and graphic design. What you had to do is learn how to animate a kinetic type to a voiceover. So you can see some really famous ones. There's one on YouTube for V for Vendetta, Pulp Fiction, where they've taken the sound bites of those and actually animated those.
I see. Yeah, I have seen those.
And you know what's really cool is that was actually an assignment that we did that I had students do when they were in my class, except for we would take, school appropriate sound bites, of course. Right. But
what kind of tool would you use to produce something like that?
I'm sorry?
What kind of tool would you use to produce something like that?
Most of the time, we would use like Adobe After Effects to do the majority of it. And then we could also use, we used to use Adobe Flash or Animate. You can do it in there also. Right. But we find After Effects is one of the better ones to do it, because After Effects will give you the ability to really manipulate and mold the camera angles and move the typography and text in a multitude of different ways.
I love it.
Has anybody not seen kinetic type before? Or kinetic typography?
I have definitely seen it. I love it. And it's stuff that I've there you go. Alan has actually posted a link of his that
yay
produced a while back. So Alan's a monster on the
there you go
side.
Nice. I'm about to go sneak and go look at your work, Alan. Nice, man. Yep, he's dead on. That's exactly kinetic type.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So gamified learning. This is one that I think you might be able to speak pretty
well, a few. Okay, so obviously our company really focuses on the gamified learning experiences, and it's not necessarily that we're building games out of everything. What we're doing is adding game mechanics to traditional e-learning experiences to provide a level of engagement that's above and beyond what they've had before. Most of it is in the side of content gamification. We have partnered with multiple companies for structural gamification also, but what we find is if we're going to do, let's say, badges and progression bars, they're basically over ways to actually complete the course or to increase the indication of a particular progression of how well you're doing in a particular part of the learning experience, rather than it being just how long until you're done with the course. To me, that just incentivizes them to get done with your course faster and go, oh good, I only have 12 more slides before this is over. I only have 3 more slides till this is over. So for us, looking at that, adding mechanics and all types of mechanics. I'm talking anything from the integration of timers, stopwatches, badges, those leaderboard pieces, but they got to be relative to those people, and everything in between, for people to actually have a learning experience that's actually providing them information, but also allowing them this gaming throughout. And I'm not talking Frogger or Flappy Bird or anything like that. I'm talking, you may be tasked with a experience where you're building a hotel, and your job is to see how well you can do that as the game. And it's based on you setting up for general managers or new hotel owners. And you're actually going to play this game and learn what it takes to actually go from the beginning now that you've signed a contract with hospitality company X.
Yeah. Hey, so, I'm just curious. Is there like a gamified learning experience that is kind of like the pinnacle of all of it? Anything maybe even you guys created, or is there anything that everyone looks at and said that is the
for me at least, I look at it from an administrative standpoint because I'm always looking at it from the business side and not necessarily just from the learning side. Yeah. And I say one of the best examples that I've seen that I've said before is Domino's Pizza Hero. And what they did is they just released Domino's Pizza Hero public on the iOS and Android store. You have to register age, location, phone number, address, all of that good stuff. And what you're able to do is actually play this game where you indirectly learn all the recipes for the pizzas at Domino's and how long they need to be cooked and what to use and all of this good stuff. And what ends up happening is you can, first off, this was from the marketing side where you could actually order your pizza right then and there. If you're just playing the game and utilizing it. But what they were doing is they were tracking all the data on the back end, and the high performers, what they did is the talent division actually reached out and recruited those individuals because they were already trained on the recipes and what toppings go in what pizzas. So they were actually able to save a considerable amount of money on their onboarding because they had already indirectly trained those individuals by utilizing the top 5,000. Which I thought was very impressive from in my opinion, a gamified learning experience that is far beyond just hey, we put this game out for fun.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. I definitely am going to want to link that in the notes just to have for everybody to check out. Excellent. All right, let's moving right along. Oh, user ratings.
Yeah, we've actually had. Yeah, you know what's funny? We actually have been integrating some user ratings and user experiences per the end of each kind of section of the learning experiences. That way, what we can do is we can actually get direct feedback on how informative, engaging does the actual learner feel it is. And then that way we can get that information as we go, and it's optional for them to provide. So it's not necessarily they have to, but then we can collect that data and actually assemble, analyze, and then come back and do our iterations, which we do with our customers over quarters. And we evolve the course material based on any changes that need to be done. And so we've actually been integrating these so that we can see, in essence, what's happening and what they feel is effective and what is not effective in the learning material. And then that gives a better understanding for the actual business to get a sense of what their employees feel is of value for the training they had and what is not of value.
Yeah, I've never heard this one, so I'm kind of curious if anybody in the live audience has integrated this level of type of interactivity into any of the training that they're developing. Just because that's really interesting to me. User ratings, awesome.
Yeah, it all depends on the culture. We had the company that we're actually integrating those. We find that some LMSs have it for the entire course. what we're actually doing is utilizing XAPI to actually go over particular topics. So if we have, let's say we do a bunch of micro-learning courses. We all know, let's say we do an hour's worth of training. We do these as 6-10-minute modules. We still got it broken down. We can do those LMS ratings by those modules. But as far as is this information relevant in the first 5 minutes for that chapter, we can get that data using user ratings within inside of the actual system. And then on top of that, we can use the LMS ratings to see overall how well that actual module has been.
Right. That just feeds both sides. That's pretty, that's a really, really good one. All right. So let's talk about learner quizzes.
So for the longest time, we've looked at like true and false, multiple choice, fill in the blank, things like this. This kind of comes back to the gaming side of things. One of the things that we have been doing, which I think is really cool, is remedial or your post-performance learner quizzes that are being launched in mini game quiz-like experiences. That way we can kind of see what they've taken away. And kind of see exactly what has dropped off from their retention. That way we know when we deploy the next round of that training material in the ecosystem, we can actually then assess how well they have done. And normally these learner quizzes or post-assessment pieces are fully scenario-based, and they're usually full-out game experiences, much like what we've done with, let's say, Mercer or one example is Longhorn. Like you guys we've posted the Longhorn build in here before, but that was just one small piece of a very large piece of curriculum. And that was actually the learner assessment piece that was post. You've already been trained on everything else. So a lot of times we get these and it's combined into our learning ecosystem when we actually pitch that proposal side of things. That way we can, in essence, provide that. They can have it after, let's say, one of those gamified e-learning experiences where we're still presenting that information. But this one is, all right, it's now to put you in that role. Let's see how you do, but in that gaming form.
I see. So give me a quick, what's the difference between a knowledge check and a learner quiz?
Okay, so the knowledge check would be within inside of an actual course for us, where about every 3 to 5 slides, we're looking at actually assessing you and ensuring that you're making major decisions throughout that learning experience. And a learner quiz, you're literally put in, like, you've already been provided this information. It's now, day one at sales. Good luck. And let's see you actually do it. Okay. So it's more of that scenario-based day in the life of kind of experience for us. And that learner quiz kind of thing, it allows us to then, again, take that data and provide it back to the organization so we can tell them what we need to work on for remedial training on those particular topics based on how well they did within inside of that learning quiz and or simulated game.
Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent. All right.
Now,
animations. Next one.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys all know there are, oh my gosh, so many different explainer video animated softwares out there, and all of them do an excellent job. I think this comes back to what we were talking about before. One of the things I see a lot of is please, please, please stop just fading in bullets that are then talked. Like, don't do that anymore. Find a visual representation for whatever is being discussed, okay? Closed captioning has your text already. Your screen should be full of visual elements and animation as much as if you were doing an advertisement for the Super Bowl, okay? Even if this is just 2D, pieces from like Go Animate or Scribed, or I'm not promoting any of them, just throwing some names out there. But the fact of the matter is we're still kind of doing this. Here's the text on the screen, and then we're going to read you this information. And there are needs for that, but I think at this point, since we're all bombarded by media and we're watching YouTube videos that are, 30 frames per second, we need to pick up our game when it comes to the animation side of things. Whether that's just learning how to do your leading in, leading out, shakes, things of that way nature. You can literally just take on Lynda, animation 101, motion graphic 101 class and learn the foundations of, the oversway when things pop in. So, everything in Disney, in Walt Disney's world, it never faded in like this. It would sway like that. And so you have to learn how to animate that way. And that's something we learned in college. And I found it to be very beneficial. Luckily, one of the professor that I had ended up at one of the directors at Blue Sky. So I got lucky with who I learned animation from. But I find that I think we need to kind of just focus on really picking that up from a creative standpoint when building these learning experiences.
Yeah, and those type of things can be really, really subtle, but super effective, right? And you might not even notice.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And as we know, if you have a strong visual representation while videos or while audio is happening, they're more likely going to retain that and have a visual cue to what was being stated. So if they have to stare at a screen, if you guys watch a movie, Avengers, and everybody's going crazy over Avengers. So a great example is if you count the screen, and this is what we learned in animation class too. Every 9 seconds, there is a camera angle change, because if it's more than 9 seconds, you lose human interest. So from now on, what I'd like you guys to do is watch a movie and just do 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4 1000. You will not get the 9 1000 before you end up with a camera angle change. And the reason why is we can't keep our attention on something that isn't moving.
No, that's good stuff. Yeah, and what is it? I guess I would be digressing if I'm trying to remember what a goldfish's sort of attention span is. I want to say it's like 7 seconds, and we're like we're around the same level. I read something about that recently. So
I was gonna say that is probably more than mine.
And you know what? This is an interesting comment that Leslie just posted, because this sort of reminds me of a community discussion we had last week about what they knew about like people that got into instructional design, what they wish they knew before that. But she says, I have one client who wants every single thing on the screen read in voiceover. And gosh, it's tough to convince them of better practices. So you, as kind of a veteran, I would like to hear, like, how do you deal with something like that? And I know this is kind of, diverting a little bit from the infographic, but I think that's an interesting thing to discuss.
Okay, I'm going to give a secret away. You ready? Yeah. How many of you guys remember your best professor or teacher? Just go ahead and type yeah or no in the chat. How many of you guys remember your best teacher? Yeah, I got a few. I like the hands, you creative Joe and Craig. Using the hand emojis. Okay. Now, how many of you out of those people remember the information and can vividly remember some of the information that was provided to you by that favorite or best professor and or teacher? Spock. Live long and prosper. So I always ask the same. Craig. Wow.
Craig.
That's deep. Yeah, that's deep, buddy. I don't think we have enough time for that one. All right, so here we go. How many of you remember your worst professor or teacher?
No.
Go ahead and raise your hand or say, yeah, no. I remember the class. Yep, from a Rick.
Wow.
Yeah.
Remember, yeah.
Okay, so do you remember the curriculum from that teacher?
From the worst one?
Yeah, from the worst teacher. So, Leslie, here's to answer your question. In my professional opinion, an instructional designer is the individual that is either makes or breaks the learning experience to have a good teacher or a bad teacher. And we all know, without even doing a test, and I'm sure there's studies everywhere on this, that the best teacher you ever had, you will retain more information from that because it was presented and provided to you in a way that engaged you, entertained you, and educated you. And so that individual wants to put the text on the screen, they are a terrible teacher. And sometimes we just need to tell them that. But I would come at it like that and explain it that way. And you can say, look, I'm a professional. You hired me for this. And as a professional, we wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So if you want me to do it, fine, but we wouldn't do that as in my line of work.
And it's so conveniently sort of aligns with number 8, like storytelling, because when I'm thinking about my favorite teacher, he was a history teacher when I was in junior college, who just told these incredibly just compelling stories in history where it felt like entertainment whenever I went to class, right? Because he would just talk about stuff during, World War II or during the Depression, and I loved every moment of that class. And so, I think it's conveniently storytelling is the next one. Let's talk about that.
This is one of the biggest for us. One of the things that I found to be some of the best instructional designers over time are people that have come out of communication majors. And the reason why is communication majors a lot of time have to write very meaningful stories and come up with, writing and communication styles and understand how to write information in a way that's compelling and informative. And I find inside of a lot of what we do, there has to be a story throughout from the beginning to end and a goal that you're trying to achieve. And that's something that we've pulled from, in our opinion, the video game realm. And in each one of the video games, you're provided that story up front, and that story stays throughout. Even in the Mario Brothers, they take the princess at the beginning. The whole time you're fighting to go find the princess and get the princess. At the end, you either get killed by Bowser or you get the princess. Even back then, when Luis and I were little kids sitting cross-legged in front of the RCA tube TV, playing Mario Brothers, there was a story from the beginning to end. And what's ironic about that story is if you guys go back and watch that, and they'll show you, like even in Super Mario Brothers 3, when you first started up, it starts the storyline and goes through the storyline. It literally has, the visuals of those two with the closed captioning underneath. And I look at that, and the other day I went, oh my God, that looks just like our modules sometimes. And we were doing that in 1984 in the video game realm. So, looking at that, we need to figure out ways to have a compelling story that then has those parallel branching pieces we were talking about, and the story can evolve and change based on the decisions that you make. So that's the other side of it, is sitting down almost like you're writing a movie that has multiple endings. And thinking about it that way. And that's kind of how we brainstorm, is we look at the context of the content, we look at the audience, we look at the goals that they're looking to have happen, we look at the culture, and then we try to come up with some compelling concepts, themes, and stories that will actually interject into that so that we can align the behaviors we want to see. So in our opinion, a story has got to be done from beginning to end, even if it's compliance training. We just did quite a few of them for compliance, and they're all different stories. Everything from you're going undercover to you are, a new hire to we did one for like a you don't know Jack type of experience, and everything in between. But from the beginning to end, it has a story throughout, and you see the outcomes that way.
Is pretty much everything that you guys produce, do you try to relate it to a story of some sort to make it more engaging? Is
Absolutely. One of the cool things that we'll even do is when we do our determine phase with our clients, we will actually work with them to see if we can extrapolate any examples from them and try to utilize as much as we can from them. So a great example is in the Mercer experience. Once you have actually completed the sales actual experience with them and you've made the sale to the company, you were provided that same scenario as an audio recording that we did of the CEO or whoever made that sale, so they could explain exactly what took place, and you can kind of see how you did it compared to what they did, so that we have that identical story, but it's not in a perfect way. They could have got to the ending in different ways, much like the original person that made the sale did. And so we try to do that throughout. It's a mandatory piece here.
No, that's great. Yeah, I was an English major, English lit actually, and so yeah, storytelling has always been a big part of anything that I like to create. You know, and including TLDC. It's like I think that you know, this community as a whole is just, it's all about stories. I've always been wanting to bring people in that have cool stories and can tell a good story, because I think that this particular audience is really, really rich in their background. So let's talk about energetic narrators. Yeah,
this one big time. Okay, so first off, this is just a personal thing. I get like, oh my gosh, so many emails for voiceover talents in a day. One of the things I can tell you about voiceover talents, monotone is the worst, absolute worst. Second, we like to try to have multiples if we can, and we try to budget out to make that fit within. That way we can do a multiple of different things. We actually have a narrator, much like you may have for a TV show, but then you have main characters, and they might not even be on the screen. They might be, you know, a female that's, you know, you're in first person in that female, but there's still a narrator saying, you know, oh, Jenny, what do you do now? And they're playing with each other in the communication style and complimenting each other. It's not go to one slide, go to the next slide to hear a female. You know, they might be doing commentary together. They might be reviewing something and, you know, cracking jokes together, and really providing one of the really cool experiences we did before was just comes to my mind. We did a couch potato. This one was so much fun with narrators. You were a couch potato, and it was for a large television company, and you basically were flipping through channels, and you could see the visual that you had was what I see, which is you saw a thumb and you saw a remote, and the TV would change, and it would go through, and it was almost like before Robot Chicken came out, but Robot Chicken for information for intellectual property and for this television company. And so it was just bam, 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 bam. Yeah, this was like 6-7 years ago. That was really fun. And what it was is we had, I think, 24 narrators, because every time the channel changed, boom. Yeah, awesome. Billy Mays here. You know, change the channel and it's Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg. Change the channel and it's Morgan Freeman. Change the channel and it's, you know, and it was really cool because each kind of topic was a channel change. So we did a quick, and it was really, really cool.
Is that on YouTube by chance?
No.
It'd just be interesting to see. That seems like it'd be particularly engaging and a great example of like having an energetic narrator.
Yeah, it would be fantastic, but as you know, like 98% of our work is under non-disclosure agreements. So what you guys do get to see is the stuff that we're allowed to show.
Yeah. Awesome.
But it was a really cool project. We did it about, I'd say, 8 years ago. That was that was back in like Flash days.
Yeah. Good old days.
Yeah.
Relatable experiences. Last one, number 10.
One of the things I could tell you is, Craig, what's Flash? It's called Adobe Animate, and it's amazing. All right, so one of the things I could tell you that we have really found from doing a lot of research is if you are training people at work, 9 times out of 10 they need to get back to work. They all have work pressures. They all have places to be. They all have goals that they have to meet. And we're normally considered just a pain in their rear truth. That's why we get the least amount of funding. We're seen as they have to do this to keep their jobs, but not necessarily do they see it as in we're playing a sport and we're practicing. And that's the biggest difference in the training that we're doing and the mentality of actual training for anything else. And so one of the things we found is if it can be relatable to make their jobs easier, better, or it can train them to do whatever they need to do faster, they're more likely to do it. So one of the things we try to do is add personalities and engagement that is going to just be around what they're doing in that job role and the types of things that they would see, so that it's as relatable to their actual job as possible, rather than trying to just do it for everyone. Now, compliance, we will, but the majority of the time we really try to focus on specific target audiences, and then we'll split projects up based by the target audience.
Yeah, no, that's huge. I mean, that is such a big thing, because you have to research your audience. You need to know who they are, where they, where they're sitting, what their desk might look like. Just that would be so much more engaging for them if the content is something that kind of parallels their current experience.
Very much so. And again, they want to get back to work. They want to get back to the responsibilities they have. So in regards to this, that's why we're trying to train them to take them to the next level. But a lot of times they see us as a wall and not necessarily a step. And so by making it as relatable as possible, they'll start to see it as a step rather than a wall.
Is there anything specific as far as the content is concerned that like knowing that they want to get back to work? Is there something that you would do specifically to like acknowledge that, that concept?
We have, we've, basically, especially with sales training is always the hardest, because no company will allow us to pull their sales reps off for an hour.
Yeah.
I don't care how big or small, they don't want you to do that. And it's extremely important, like doing the compliance, so they don't, if they get sued, they can say, we've already trained everybody on this. So the only way, especially for the relatable side, it's got to be something about sales that's going to increase their ability to do sales. Otherwise, they don't want to. They don't bother them.
Interesting. No, that's great. Excellent.
I find they're the hardest. Them and engineers, just because engineers a lot of times have a lot of responsibilities of keeping things up and running and or building things, and so a lot of times they're very hard to pin down or get hard answers out of, just because, in their line of work, those two things are not normal.
I love it. Well, excellent. So that's it. I thank you so much for sharing all of these. Cheryl is looking for the link. Let me grab that real quick. So let me turn off the share. Let's see here.
Mike asked one question real quick. Mike asked, do you ask all your clients if you could use the project to create for them for your own promotional example purposes? Well, that's usually done during contracting. And I can tell you, I think I kind of explained it here, I would say over 90% of our work is under NDA, and over 90% of them say, nope, don't even mention our names. It's not because of any negative reason. It's just their company doesn't want to be promoting another company, another small business, or anything like that. One that really does that is the federal government. We have a ton of federal government contracts. We can't say we're doing them. We can't even put them on a list if they've stated that.
Interesting. Okay.
Even though it's public knowledge, like you can go look that we won the contract. So it's just because of that, it looks like they're promoting us in that regards.
All right. Well, here's the link to the infographic. You just have to, there you go. Just submit a little information. You can grab that, print it out, post it on your cubicle wall. Great work on that graphic. Is that something you did in-house?
The marketing team worked with production because we wanted to really extrapolate that information from our team, considering they've been doing it for a long time. And then from there, put that together to say, hey, this is what we feel are best practices.
Yeah. No, that's great. And you are just a wealth of knowledge, Andrew. For future ones, I mean, this type of format I think would work really, really well, and it's something that I'll translate into, kind of a post and get it shared out because that really is a great resource to have this infographic.
Yeah, and my apologies, everyone. We're in the middle of a move. I can actually make that official. I can make that official right now. We are expanding, so we are moving into the building. We are knocking down walls and moving into the building that I originally started the company in. And so it's right next door to the building we are now. So it's going to be a pretty wild, right? The day after I get back from ATD to be handed the keys to the original office. And then construction happens. Dun, dun, dun. So that's why it's been hard to pin me down.
Yeah, I hope you're taking those tiki lights with you that you have behind you.
Yeah, you would know. Actually, you know what? I'll leave you with this. That we actually got those in Jamaica. My wife and I were married in Jamaica.
Oh,
so
nice.
instead of doing a huge wedding for everyone in Putnam County, shout out Craig. We decided, we'll just go get married in Jamaica. And so took immediate family and just did it there. Yeah. And those came back with us. Instead of, you know what? Those are instead of the empty meals when no one showed up that you had to pay for anyways during the reception. Instead, I got those.
Yeah. And 3 of them. Yeah, and Mike, I liked Mike's post here. This was a nice, informative presentation. You should consider doing more webcasts. Well, Andrew's back
thanks.
every month. Yeah, and we'll have this in podcast format too, which those have become like extremely popular. I'd love seeing how many people download those audio only podcasts. So we'll do that and also post the link to the infographic there.
I can't wait to see us just rival Joe Rogan.
That's us, our little L&D webcast rivaling Joe Rogan. Yeah,
Joe calls us. He's like, "What the hell, guys?"
Taking over the world. All right. Well, let's see. I've got 9 a.m. Pacific time over here, so I'm going to wrap everything up. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on once again and sharing all your knowledge with us. Thank you for being a sponsor. Have fun at ATD ICE. I think that are you guys actually exhibiting there? Or?
Yeah, we have an exhibitor booth there. So I'll be there, and I think 3 of our learning solution specialists. So awesome. We'll be there in our booth. I think it's booth 1324. So come check us out.
Yeah, you guys definitely go say hi to Andrew if you see him. He is easily one of the coolest people in L&D. Definitely my favorite, I think. I'll have to
he's just saying that.
Favorite.
And
just big hug. And and actually, the company I work for, O'Reilly Media, is going to be at ATD ICE. So Jenny, new friend Jenny, who is super fantastic. If you roll by O'Reilly and you want to say hi, look for Jenny because she is one of the funnest people I work with. So give her a shout out. But anyway, everybody, thanks so much for coming in and sharing this hour with us. Thanks again, Andrew. And we'll catch you next time. I think, what have we got? I think next week. Next week we have an interesting community discussion with Rubina Halwani on landing a job in instructional design. I think that one's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have fun for that one too. So, thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Take care. Thanks, everybody.